Hi, everybody. Welcome to Engaging Stakeholders. We will be wearing our champion hats, and we are going to use our advocacy workbooks for this session. Also, if your LEA has done script, it's also helpful to have that plan handy, that Google Doc that you use for your script workshop. No pressure if you haven't, though. Let's get started. Now that you're more than halfway through the pathway, we bet that there's probably a lot of awesome things that you could tell other people about your CS efforts so far. To help with this, we have 3 engaging stakeholders activities spread across the remaining pathway modules. Starting in this module, you'll make a plan for communicating with one specific stakeholder about your CS education efforts using that advocacy workbook I mentioned. I want to give you a preview of what you'll encounter in the workbook, but I want to keep this recording as brief as possible so that you can spend as much of that 90 minutes getting started with that stakeholder engagement. So here's our preview. The advocacy workbook is broken down into steps, and each step includes some questions that are numerically listed there. In your workbook, we get started with the finding your why activity. If you think all the way back to the very first module. So hopefully you can pick up where you left off, starting with question number 2. This is where, if I mentioned earlier, if your school or district has done script, we would definitely encourage you to refer to your script plan for questions number 2 and 3. Moving into step 2 of the advocacy workbook, that's where you're going to identify stakeholders or make a list of stakeholders in your district and in your community that are involved in CS education. Then next in step 3, you'll do a quick self-assessment of how much engagement you've had with those stakeholders you identified. The goal here is to reflect on who has played a role in any of your computer science efforts so far, but it's very unlikely that you'll have 3 or 4 top scores across the board with all of your stakeholders. Also in this step, you're going to pick the stakeholder in which you'll be communicating with. And here's where we want to encourage you to push beyond your comfort zone. Don't cheat yourself and say something like, well, obviously our students are always the most important. Well, sure, we're not arguing with you on that. But the point here is to think about stakeholders that have specific value or needs in the immediate future of your pilot project. For example, if you're working on doing some curriculum updates, your students will definitely be impacted, but may not be a top priority for communication along the way. However, it might be really helpful to collaborate or connect with other LEAs who are designing similar courses so that you can share ideas. Okay, last but not least, right? Like, we want you to get to the fun stuff. Think about, create a plan for how you'll initiate this communication. There's room in step 4 for making literally a little to-do list. Like, when are you going to get it out there? And of course, drafting your communication. We don't expect that in your workbook you have the final publish-worthy piece, but hope that the workbook does support you and inspire you to finalize your communication and connect with that stakeholder. If you do get your final draft ready, don't wait for us to share it. Go for it. Send that email, post that website story, whatever your communication is with that stakeholder, get it out there. We'll see you back in the next module to reflect on your communication efforts and continue along the way. But for now, good luck.